for today's session, From Fear to Fortitude, Learning Through Uncertain Times. My name is Daniel Anzueto. I'm excited to welcome you to today's session. If this is your first time attending one of our workshops, let me provide some context on Startout. Startout accelerates the growth of the LGBTQ plus community to drive our economic empowerment, building a world where every LGBTQ plus entrepreneur has equal access to lead, succeed, and shape the workforce of the future. I'm excited to welcome back our host for today's section, Dr. Moshe Oveda. The floor is yours, Moshe.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see. Yeah, let's get started. So, I don't think I need to kind of give too much context on why I felt like this is important, why we need a conversation around how to work with fear and uncertainty in these times. I'll say as an executive coach, working with a lot of founders and many diverse folks, LGBTQ, people of color, et cetera, or just kind of everyone, actually, I have to say about almost everyone I work with is experiencing some level of dysregulation, some level of like fear, shock, like, oh my God, what's happening to me? What's happening to my world? The things I used to be able to put on a website have to be changed, right? And personal threat to people we love, threat to our values. And so I also felt like, we're being in this moment of the spring equinox, which is kind of all about bringing things into balance, right? Is that we're kind of in this moment where everywhere in the world, we have equal measures of light and dark, right? It's not like we only like being with light, positive things, but we're also not overwhelmed by the dark. We have this beautiful equal balance. It feels like a nice time of the year to actually reflect on how do we bring back balance and homeostasis in ourselves? How do we, with the darkness, and shine some light on it, but also how do we not flee and run from that, because also that doesn't work very well. We just try to avoid it and put our heads in the sand. So the first thing I want to just invite in is your name. We have our names here. Maybe since we're a small group today, I would love for those who are willing to at least unmute themselves, potentially turn on their videos for a moment, to share what brought you here and what's a fear that you're facing or fear that you're working with, so we could try to bring that into the group. And if you can't unmute yourself, you're welcome to type it into the chat as well. But I just want to get a sense for what's affecting you, right? What would be a helpful outcome for our conversation today?
I can go first.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. My name is Andrew. I am calling in from Mexico City. I guess one of the biggest things on my mind within the last year and a half has been, I quit my job at the end of last year to start a business. And so I guess one of the biggest fears, there are many fears, but one of the biggest fears is actually getting the business up and running, becoming profitable, having revenue come in, and then along with that, sort of everything going on in the United States. We were thinking about registering our business in the US, but our business is a drag school. So with everything happening in the community in the United States, it's a little weird. And so it's like, do we register in the US or another country because of all this crap that's happening? So yeah, those are my biggest fears, is like around the business and getting it up and running.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for naming these big challenges that are like common for any founder. And then this compounding that comes with the political environment that might threaten the very core of the business you're trying to create. Where do we even call it home for our business? It was not a question we had to ask a year ago.
Hey everyone, I will go next. We're such a polite group. I love it. It's nice in this world. We don't see them very much of that right now. I'm David Collins. I am a writer based in Chicago, and I have several novels, queer fiction, horror, and soon romance. So I'm very excited to be out at the summer festivals, cons, and events coming into our summer reading season. echoing so much of what Andrew just said. So I do have a full-time job that keeps the rent paid, but I do see creativity as my future as well. Concerns in this political season. Are people going to come to Pride? Are people going to
Mm,
come to market days? Is
mm,
there going to be this fear around collecting ourselves into a space? Whereas generations ago, we would live in neighborhoods for safety. Now, is being all together in one place a threat? How are people going to look at travel in the US and also outside? That's a piece of it as well. And like a lot of founders and creators, I have a lot of my money into inventory and development. So, frankly, debt is a fear of mine.
mm.
I love the independence of doing this, being an LLC, doing this on my own. And StartOut has been a phenomenal partner in my journey, but hoping that there is actually sales and there's a payoff at some point, so I can live a little bigger than I am right now, but continuing faith in my creativity. So that's kind of where I'm at, and why this this time together, this conversation was so appealing to me. So thank you for offering this to everyone.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your journey. And I'm really hearing, I've taken these creative bets, right? So I've taken on debt. I've given my life worth and time. Will the queer community still keep showing up at the places and spaces we've convened before, or will people retreat into hiding? Because you need customers. You have an audience. You want an audience for your creativity. And I'm wondering also, it leads me to the question, how is your own internal creative energy doing these days, right?
Yeah. Mine, so I feel artists need to be part of the resistance.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to censor myself. I have trans characters. I have queer characters. The romance is actually queer characters over
Mm,
50. So I'm hitting a number of demographics that really aren't on the bookshelves today. And I'm not going to be afraid. I grew up closeted. I will not go back. So for myself, I'm not, but just as you said, like I need to connect with people. What I do like about writing, about books, whether that's an ebook or a paperback, is it's something that you can kind of do in privacy. And I
mhm.
know, having been at festivals, people will come back and say, I gave it to my cousin who just came out. So I like what art and what literature can do to heal. And I like being a part of that. So I'm kind of not going to go back. But at the same time, we've got bills to pay. So, and as you can imagine, um, print the cost of paper, the cost of printing, delivery,
Yeah.
booth space fees, it's just escalating year after year, to the point where younger queer creatives can't even afford to be at these, festivals that are around the country. So all this is on my mind. But again,
Okay.
thank you for offering this space for us to chat and learn from you.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up. How about some others? And you can put it in the chat, or would love to hear your voice for just a few sentences as to what brought you here today, and what fears you're working with.
Um, what brought me here? Oh, sorry. I'll go next. Hi, I'm Ty. I'm
Hi,
in the
Ty.
Midwest in the US. I'm very close to you, David. Um, what brought me here today? I enjoy the start out space. I see myself as an ally, slash question mark. But the reason why I keep coming back to these spaces is because it's nice here. It's a comfortable space, it's a brave space, it's a safe space. And I just enjoy the ability to be able to connect in a space where people have an alignment from my perspective on my values. And
Mhm.
especially during these tumultuous times where we seemingly were going in the right direction before, we seem to be doing different things now. And so I prefer to be in spaces with people who are closely aligned with my values versus not. And so I really respect this space. Moving on to my fears, I'm hedging bets on particular projects that have to do with social good and social change, and trying to diversify that funding portfolio for these times where, relying on one particular fund does not make sense. it's not sustainable, that type of thing. And so I'm trying to find more and more spaces where they support the work, but they support the work in being done right.
Hmm.
I dislike the idea of having to bend too much and feeling like the mission alignment is now being dragged in a different direction, excuse me, due to funding. And so that's kind of my fear, and I'll leave it at that.
So hearing the fear. So first of all, like I want to be in a space with like-minded people. I feel safer there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting.
Yeah.
But a fear around funding and how much do I have to adapt the mission alignment maybe as the times are changing.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to find the where I'm hedging my bets are where I have much more freedom in what I'd like to do. And so, if I get approved, that's a good thing. If I don't, I have a day job, but I'm trying to quit.
Yeah,
I
totally.
don't want to keep having to, you know what I mean? I got bills to pay, but I don't want to, that I just, it feels like a chain, around my
Hmm.
foot. It feels like a chain around my foot, keeping me from doing the work I want to do. And so I'd like to cut that chain off.
Yeah, so I feel this chain and I want to cut it off. There's kind of that leap of faith that many founders need to take, right? Is like, and know when and how to kind of say, I'm ready to cut that chain off and jump a bit into the unknown. Yeah, thank you. And I just want to, Liz had added to the chat. In my early career, I've been unemployed for a while and disenfranchised by the corporate world, but it costs to live, especially health insurance. So I'm afraid of how to best live my authentic self and unsure of what battles to fight, where, and when. Great. Justin or Kai or Kong, did you want to share either in the chat or in your words kind of what brings you here and what fear you're working with?
Hey guys, I actually am here to just listen, just sit in and listen and learn. Um, I I don't have any fears. For me, it's just more so navigating through my thought processes throughout the day. I understand that as human beings, we have innate negative thoughts,
Yeah,
and it's our responsibility to observe those thoughts, be mindful. And thoughts are just thoughts, they don't define who we are. And so meditation helps me with that a lot.
yeah, thank you. Would you be, I'm trying to decide if we want to go with breakout groups or not today. Would you be willing to go into a breakout group to talk about where you are with others in a little bit later today?
Are you asking me directly or
Yeah,
the
I'm asking you directly. Yeah.
yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I can jump in. And I am your start out staff member, but if you all allow me, I will join as just a member of the community. I think something, and it's interesting, Moshe, as you were talking about this, the fear that I have that I don't think I had put a name to it was the fear of letting down the queer activists that I discovered I was in college. I was super duper active. I like came out in college. I led our student organization. I was incredibly involved in the community, and that has led me to where I'm at now. And as many people have said, having a paycheck is nice. Working at an organization like Start Out is great. And figuring out how to balance and find space for the fact that the world is a little bit on fire right now, and how to deal with that, but then also how to sit. I think the comment y'all have made around creativity, like I build programs, so like I get to work with amazing people like Moshe and say, hey, what do you want to build? And some of that is conversation, and I have to think about it, and I have to sit and be like, what can we do together? What does that look like? And creativity is so easily dampened for me when my emotions are out of whack, that like sitting and thinking about it. So I think the fear is like, am I still making college level Danny happy while also creating space for me to like breathe and find joy and dream and these things so that I can provide better content for the folks that are in our ecosystem.
Great, thank you. And I'm hearing you're all laying some great seeds for where I want to take this conversation in a few minutes. Kai, if I pronounce your name right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have any fear in mind. I just saw the title that was like Fear to Fortitude Leading Through Uncertain Times. So I have a early stage startup and there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. And so I was just here to listen in and see what there might be to learning and sort of challenges that might come up for me later.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kai. Okay, let's continue onward. Justin, if you want to share, you're welcome to jump in. Otherwise, we can continue onward. But I think the thing I want to emphasize is that we're kind of in a double whammy as startup founders, right? In these times, or a multi whammy, because we're trying to start organization. We're doing. The startup journey is full of fear, uncertainty, and opportunities to stretch us beyond our limits, right? And then we're in a world that's rapidly changing and a political environment that's rapidly changing and that feels more and more hostile to people like us. And I'll say also many leaders and organizations that are trying to do good things in the world, right? And I'll get to some examples later, but like, you know, there are folks I work with in the healthcare space who are not LGBTQ, but like suddenly their funding is jeopardized and cut in half, like curing cancer. They're targeting women's diseases that particularly target women's health, and suddenly they no longer can write the word women, just like we can't write the word LGBTQ, right, in their grant proposals for government funding. So it's like, what the heck do I do now, right? On top of like managing a team and all those dynamics. And then the team is panicking, and then the team is dysregulated, and then they're infighting more, right? I work with folks in the climate space, and their funding, their whole environment, promissory notes from the DOE, Department of Energy, have disappeared as well. So that's being layered on top of a traditional startup journey. So, and actually, I think fear is a really powerful emotion to work with. And so I want to unpack that a little bit. I'm going to give you some very simple tools that I've learned, that I've worked with, and some of them are anchored in conscious leaderships groups work around what it means to be a conscious leader. And so my ultimate goal today is to support you on your journey of being a conscious leader and give you a direct experience of what it means to kind of be a bit more present and conscious, and how from that state of being, you're actually able to make better choices. Right? Because we can't necessarily control or change the world. But to Danny's point, when we're in that space of fear or contraction, we aren't like, there's a lot of research in social psychology. I read the literature as a doctoral student in social science, in social psychology. Like, you can't be creative, resourceful, and visionary when you're in a space of contraction, fear, and survivalism, right? They're just different modes of being, different modes of consciousness. You know, one of the lenses I think about is, imagine a line from the there's a line, and are you above the line? Meaning, are you able to be in a place of openness, curiosity, and commitment to growth and possibility? Are you below the line? Below the line in a place of contraction, fear, victimhood, denial. And then if you're below the line, how deep below the line are you, right? How much in fear or panic might you be in this moment? And that level, the first tool, and I appreciate, Kang, your nod towards meditation, is knowing where you are, right? And my colleagues will say 95% of people are below the line 95% of the time, right? And when we're below the line, we're reactionary, we're defensive, we're resistant to change. We're resistant to really what is and what's happening in this moment. And when we're below the line, we get into our vagus nerve, right? Our nervous system moves into a number of responses that are survivalist, which are flight, right? Freeze, fawn, or even fight, right? So when we talk about being in resistance, are we fighting from a place that's reactionary and threatened, right? And we kind of see, frankly, how, particularly this administration, but how the world kind of responds when we're fighting back from below the line, from a place of fear, contraction, and survivalism, right? Like, or are we able to be calm, collective, and creative in our, and reroute into our own nature, right? Into our own essential selves, into our own resilience. And if we are responding, we could call it fighting, but I actually think of it more of as responding and authentic, courageously, responding with resilience, responding with courage, but anchored into ourselves and strategically, right? That's a different type of response, right? It's not coming from panic, because it's that same energy that like is fleeing or hiding or running that can be or fawning, right? Is it could be the same, that same energy of panic and dysregulation could be fighting, or we could call it whatever we want, but responding courageously from a clear anchored self. So actually, from my perspective, the greatest act of resistance possible in this time is actually being calm, centered, and being aware of when we're being dysregulated, getting back into being regulated, and from that place, finding in ourselves and with our teams what it means to respond from a place of balance and regulation. What it means, so step number one, tool number one is simply the awareness. Am I above the line or below the line? Am I regulated or dysregulated? And I will say one of the gifts that we have as queer folks is we know what it's like to respond to threat. We know what it's like to respond to being unsafe. And we know what it's like to tune into our own resilience. That wound is become our gift, right? That we have to offer. So is that landing with folks by and large? Yeah, working with fear, working with threat is not new to us. And like every time you open a news headline, it's like another form of fear. It's another form of threat. And some of them are really direct attacks at us in our community, right? And so do we hide or do we fight back with aggression? But frankly, on the aggressive terms, right? In some ways, I would argue that, it's an incendiary response to bring out a fight that maybe we on their terms, right? So how do we kind of actually find our own joy and our own resilience and resistance by coming back to our center and our own presence? And I'll give you an example of this from an entrepreneurial business standpoint that I lived through during COVID. I had a job. I was living in New York City, which was ground zero of COVID in the US, like spring of 2020, 80% of all COVID cases in the country are happening in the greater New York area. And I left New York City, staying with my mom in the suburbs in New Jersey, just outside the city. And we had a small factory that was manufacturing stuff for salesmen, travel. Basically, our orders disappeared instantly. And it was a small small business of America, right? I know some of you are small business owners. And so everything vaporized. And I'd read the news headlines and I'd just be in, tears, panic. Maybe you can recall what it felt like in like March, April of 2020. And then there was a moment we had, but frankly, I had tools, long-term meditation practice, I think I'm better at it now than I was then, but I had enough in me to come back to center and said, we'll touch upon reframing later. Okay, I feel the victim of this thing. I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling panic and contraction. How is, if this weren't happening to me, but happening by me, where can I find my empowered creator in all this? And what I realized is like, hey, we have a small factory and there's no PPE, there's no protective equipment. And within a week, we came up with a design for a face shield. We somehow found source material scattered all around the country, had like all these friends of mine who were like, lost their jobs or were in other states of being volunteering to research the hospital regulations, fundraise tens of thousands of dollars for donations, and then donated them to like thousands of frontline workers around the New York area. And so, that was what life had called upon in 2020. I never anticipated, but I had to shift internally in myself, be aware of where I was and work my way through it to come back to that. And then frankly, show up at work with my mom, right? And kind of as co-CEO for a while. And actually, how do we help the team regulate? How do we help the team find inspiration and possibility in all this? Right? There was no clear enemy or, in the same way, right? So it wasn't, but we found a very empowered creator response. So that's sort of the type of journey I want to encourage you all, the possibility that is there for each of us here today. So step one, tool number one, is just simply being aware of where you are, this model below or above the line. And step number two, I'm going to call ground and breathe. And so I'm going to take us through a brief guided meditation to experience that, right? So we talked about the questions, will my company survive, right? I have this chain on my foot. I just got to escape. I just got to escape, right? Like, there's all, will my business survive? Will anyone show up at the festival, right? And like, we can experience a panic in our bodies. So I want to just take us through a meditation to support us in a way of being with those feelings. So I want to invite you to close your eyes and just feel the earth beneath your feet. I'm going to do it with you. So really close your eyes. And step one, it can be really helpful when we get in fear and these panic states. You may notice you start to lose our connection to our body. We go into our head and just spin in cycles. So this first step I like to do is really get you to feel your feet and feel your feet touching the earth. And if your feet aren't touching the earth, really bring some attention to your feet touching the earth. And you could almost imagine just little roots growing out from the base of your feet into the earth, or maybe just feel the energy of your feet pressing against the earth and your earth pushing back against your feet, right? So just anchoring into our own bodies and remembering we have a body is one of the first steps we can take to re-regulate our nervous systems. So feeling your feet on the earth, and if you're sitting in a chair, feeling your bum in your chair, feeling your butt really be held by your chair, and letting gravity be your friend and pull you down a bit. Then just bring a little bit of awareness to your shoulders and notice your shoulders and see. Oftentimes when we're in fear, when we're in tension, we can notice our shoulders tensing up. So see if we can notice our shoulders. See if our shoulders might be willing to just relax a little bit. Or just if we can even just notice the tension that might be there in our shoulders. Letting our shoulders relax just a little bit. And then bring a little awareness to our jaws and see if our jaws might be willing to relax a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to take us through what's called 4x4 breathing. I start my client sessions this way. So we're going to breathe in for 4 counts. We're going to hold for 4 counts. We're going to breathe out for 4 counts. We're going to hold for 4 counts. And we're going to do that 4 times. Okay, so I'll guide you through it. So we're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and return to a regular breath pattern. So letting the air just come in and out. So back to our theme of balance, what we're doing, folks feel a little bit more maybe calm, centered? Feel free to put into the chat maybe how you're feeling at this moment. But we're bringing ourselves back into presence, and we're bringing ourselves back into our bodies. Yeah. Okay. Nicely grounded. Thank you. Thanks for your response. So the next thing I want to do is spend some time on reframing these fears and working with what I'm going to call creator consciousness. So when we get contracted, when we go below the line, when we become fearful and the fears overtake us, and usually, by the way, we're not aware of this. I'm going to go back to the reminder, like step one is bringing awareness to when we're in a place of fear, right? And working with that energy. And frankly, sometimes you got to feel the fear and be in conversation with that fear. But that puts us in like a disempowered mindset, and like maybe we're a victim of life, a victim of circumstances, right? Our inner critic kicks in, we feel more contracted. So you could sum that up as saying life is happening to me, right? We're in a place of life happening to me. And what I want to invite is, how could life be happening by me? How can I be in more of a creator mindset here? How am I actually able to take charge of and direct life, given what's happening, right? Stuff happens in life all the time. Stuff has been happening in the world our whole life. How am I, instead of letting life's happening to me, I'm disempowered, right? This is the internal empowerment. This is, to me, the internal resistance. How do I actually let life be happening by me? How do I become creator of my life? How do I take 100% responsibility for the dramas that are happening inside me? And then how might this even be happening for me? So how might, if we really have some trust in life and trust in the universe, how might some of these challenges that we're confronting being an opportunity to actually grow or evolve or be in a better place as a human? So I want to give one or two examples about moving from to me to by me consciousness from clients I worked with quite recently. I mentioned earlier there was a client who's in the healthcare space, right? Who's suddenly her funding situation has disappeared and contracted, right? One of the few women founders in the space. Suddenly, she can't even use the word women applying for grants, even though her work is all about addressing cancers that affect female-bodied parts, right? So her whole team's in panic. Her whole team is in drama. Suddenly there's infighting. She's trying to mediate their infighting, but then she's not even actually able to stay centered and grounded herself, right? So she's in panic. She's in fear. She's not eating. She's not sleeping, right? She's not actually doing, it's like she's completely dysregulating and spiraling out of control. So what did we do? Step one is helping her start to eat, sleep, and regulate herself better. And step two is helping her bring that into her presence and working with her own team. What she was able to do is realize, how do I take that? What is the buy me opportunity? How do I take charge of this? This actually became an opportunity to motivate and double down on her team and say, we have a mission. We have something we stand for. We're going to keep going and moving forward. And let's realign. Let's regroup. Let's recommit ourselves for being here. And let's admit to being really conscious and tracking and managing our own drama. Let this be a fortifying experience that makes us a stronger team rather than fragment us, right? What are the opportunities in this? How might this happening for me? Hey, maybe we should be diversifying our funding and our funding sources, right? So they started to ask some creative questions about how over the medium term can we look more broadly around our funding and not place all of our eggs in this basket, right? How can we creatively think about framing and talking about our project in this time? And then how do we actually use this as a media opportunity to get more visibility? So then suddenly, without necessarily attacking or aggressing against the government, how do I be a voice of sanity? How do I have a voice of reason? How do we actually get a little bit more visibility around our mission, right, out there, and get more PR and press about what we are and how we're differentiated in this space? So, would she strategically choose this happen to her? No. But and by the way, like as a founder, as a CEO, this pattern has been going on her whole life. She's kind of gets stressed and then destroys herself. Her doctors are freaked out about her. I've been freaked out for years about her health. So this is like the wake up call for her at a personal level to be like, this, I have to change, or this stressor is may drive me over the edge, right? And so that's the opportunity, the for me, the by me opportunity. Another client of mine is a woman of color working with queer folks, leading a major DEI program at a major institution, right? And then as soon as everything that's been happening with the government has come on board, totally panic, freeze response, paralysis. Her team's in panic. She's in panic. She's voluntarily decided to become the punching bag and say, I'm going to take all the blows from my team because they're freaking out. They're in anger. They're in aggression. I'll just take all their anger and their panic. And then that's, of course, destroying her. Lifelong pattern for her. At the same time, she hasn't, we are in freeze mode, right? So her response, we are in freeze. We can't do anything without the university giving us its or the institution giving us blessing. So what we've done is we helped her kind of reground and recenter into herself and find how this is happening. What would it mean to look for this happening by me and for me? So of course, setting boundaries and changing the energy and the tone of her team, but also taking responsibility for her own drama and her own kind of martyrdom response, and then being really creative. So what are some really creative things we can do around our mission on DEI that don't flag any of the things that are in panic right now? So actually, through some brainstorming workshops and actually getting her team and herself above the line, they have some really new, interesting tactics to reframe how they think about DEI without even using the word DEI. And then how do you be empowered and a leader in this space rather than waiting for the top-down organization, institution to tell you what they're going to do? Hey, I see the new constraints we're under. Here's how I think we should navigate around this boss, around this funders. And so actually being a driver rather than waiting to and reacting to the world, how do I see the changes and creatively adapt to them? So what I'd love to do right now is actually take some time for, maybe we could work with one or two folks in this room to think about how they could be, what this inspires for you. What would it shift from to me to for me look like for you in this context? What would it look like to take responsibility here and actually navigate creatively through whatever these fears are, whatever these challenges are, be them set by the circumstances around us or something that's just part of the natural startup cycle?
I have a question. Before we do the breakout, I have a question for the general
please.
audience here. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's dealing with this. So obviously, with the current administration, we're all experiencing a wide range of emotions, from sadness to fear to anger. Where I come in is, like, I'm really upset about what's happening, right, with LGBT rights and equality being evaporated. They're doing things to eliminate, resources that we've always been benefiting from, whether that's, from a health perspective or a freedom rights perspective. And so how do you tap into the space of inspiration, joy, knowing that your existence is being jeopardized?
Okay.
That's my question.
It's a good question. Well, let's start with going back to the feelings. I had two things arise right now for me. One is feeling your feelings don't move until you feel your feelings fully. Feel them through to completion. And most of us, let's say, take the anger. I take the anger and I stay in a loop with the anger, but I never feel the anger feel somatically in my body to resolution. And until we feel through the anger, we can't feel through, maybe there's a sadness behind the anger. And then from that void arises joy, possibility, and hope. And then and the other thing I want to do is sometimes we have to work with our thoughts and interrogate our own thoughts. So you said our very existence is being jeopardized. You said something very strong. What can you remind me what you said?
Yes, I mean, that's basically how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. So there's a fear that my existence is being jeopardized. My very existence is being jeopardized. So let's work with that. Are you willing to work with that for a minute with me?
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Okay. Right.
Guinea pig.
So, and I appreciate you naming that, because you're not alone, as you said, in the room, in the group, in this country, feeling that. And if we work with queer folk, do we work with marginalized people? But frankly, I see it from everyone. People, everyone across the spectrum are fearing, share some of that fear. My existence is being jeopardized. So, is it true? My existence is being jeopardized.
You were asking me the question. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so for me,
It's a yes/no question. So, is it true? Yes, no.
yes.
Can you know with 100% certainty that your existence is in jeopardy?
Yes.
With 100% certainty.
Yes.
Okay. And what happens when you believe the thought, my existence is being jeopardized? Tell me what happens in your body. What feelings arise? What happens in your body?
Well, I'm tense. I don't really think straight. I mean, well, I shouldn't use
Can
that.
you feel that thought now? Like the thought with you now? Tell me what's happening
I
right
can't
now.
think
I'm not really
clearly.
thinking. Try in the present tense. I'm not really thinking straight.
I'm not I'm not feeling inspired and clear-minded.
Yeah. So I'm not inspired. I'm not clear-minded, and I'm tense. Tell me more about the tension.
Well, for me, it's the tension really ties into the way that I operate in terms of how I process my thoughts. So when I'm tense, I don't sleep well. I'm kind of, I'm always thinking about like what else there will be in the future in terms of like what else this administration could do.
Yeah.
Um,
And what's happening in your body? Can you feel the tension? Can you describe the tension in your body right now?
I feel I guess that I don't feel energized.
Yeah. Well, is it constriction here? Is it in your belly? Is it in your throat? Where's the tension?
I would say probably in my throat.
Your throat, right? So there's something about like something tightening here.
Yeah.
May not be able to express or even communicate freely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the cost that when we believe the thought, my existence is jeopardized. My existence is jeopardized. You're not sleeping well. You're tense. Your throat constricts. You're not thinking clearly. Your head is foggy. That's really natural, by the way. So I just want to acknowledge that that many people have that same experience. I would have a version of that when that thought is the thought that arises for me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what if I could erase the thought? My experience, my existence is jeopardized. If I could just cut like a computer code, like a line of code, I could just erase that thought. My experience is jeopardized. Can you go with me in this experiment?
I'll try. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's try the experiment. What happens when we erase that thought, my experience is jeopardized? What shifts for you?
Well, I would tap into space of inspiration, peace, joy.
Can you feel that now? Like, can you feel a little more peace and joy if we are just temporarily? You can come. That's allowed to come back later, but temporary release of thought. I am in jeopardy. My existence is jeopardized. Can you tap into? Can you feel a little bit of that peace now?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's going to require more than just like eliminating your thoughts, right? Like, obviously, it's going to take some meditation.
Well,
not
maybe,
at the
but
new.
we're interrogating the thought. We're interrogating the thought, and it's because then let's continue to the next step.
Mm-hmm.
Question is, who would you be without the thought? So if you could be without the thought, who would you be?
I would be someone that, again, I would be someone that taps into his inspiration and provide light into the world. That's who I am at the core.
Yeah.
Of
So
my
I'm hearing without that thought, you'd have access to the light in yourself, so you could bring that light to the world.
Right.
So what I want to do next is come with me on the journey. Is what's called a turnaround. So we just explore how that opposite of that thought could be as true, could be true, maybe even as true as a thought. And so how might the opposite be true? Potentially, like, my existence is jeopardized. My existence is not jeopardized.
Yeah.
How might that also be true right here, right now?
Well, I mean, I could look into the people that are in my life that are, that provide positivity and makes me feel more grounded.
Yeah.
So my relationships with my friends and family members.
Yes, your relationship with friends and family are not jeopardized yet. They're not jeopardized at this moment. They're supportive. I mean, also, I'm just where you're here, looking at me on a screen, and based on what we're discussing, there's nothing in this immediate moment that's threatening your existence.
Physically, no, you're correct.
Yeah. But when existence is jeopardized, that usually is like, existence is like, that's like a physical, I'm going to disappear, be annihilated from this planet fear. Yeah. So at this moment, you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose for me, we would have to define what jeopardize really is, right? It's not just it's really the intention to erase us from this planet. I mean, it almost sounds like it's crazy for me to even say it, because I've been in politics for so long, following politics for so long, and I've studied, the LGBT movement. So like, I have this core understanding of how this type of administration could do to inject fear and
could do
policies that could, potentially jeopardize our very own existence, meaning in a way that, whether that's taking away our rights or
but I want to push on, a right disappearing is not the same as my existence is jeopardized, or I will be erased from the planet. My fear is I will be erased. And what I want to nudge on, we don't know with 100% certainty. Can't say with 100% certainty you will be erased. And you're already taking this future possibility and making it true now. So you're basically in the fight and flight response all the time. It's like this tiger is about to erase my existence, staring at me, and its jaws are about to devour me, right? When we just know we're walking in a forest, there could be some tigers, there could be some, we might break our ankle or something, but we don't know. You see what I mean? You're bringing some future possibility into the present moment and internalizing it as a present moment experience for your reptilian nervous system.
I think that's
and you're not alone in that, by the way. So that's why it's nothing. It's a very, it's part of the human experience.
Right. It's a flight and fight mindset. I think for me, it's a coping mechanism to fight against the injustices that we're experiencing, right? So if I were to envision a future where that is the case, it would empower me to act on it would, strengthen my actions to take steps to fight against this administration, because I know that we are heading towards that direction.
Maybe, but let's go back to where you also said a couple of minutes ago that when you internalize this, because there's a story that like, oh, if I keep believing, if I let fear motivate me and fear of annihilation motivate me, then that will be my motivator to stand up for myself. But then we just spoke a few minutes ago, when you believe the belief, I'm about to be, I can be an eradicated, annihilated. Your word was great. Erased. I don't sleep. I feel tense. I'm always worried about the future. I feel constricted, and I lose the opportunity for my light to shine brighter.
Yeah.
So I just want to name that. I really appreciate you doing this work with me, because I think it gets at the heart of what a lot of we believe, that if we just take that fear and let it motivate us, we'll be more driven, but actually it's coming at a cost that lets us be less creative, less resourceful, less whole, less expanded, less of a light in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
We see the startups running out of funding, and founders become associated with their startups too. Like the startup dies, I die. So I need to do everything in my power to fight and hustle and frantically run around, so we see this in various contexts. But this is pretty, I hear what you're saying. I don't want to downplay the gravitas of it, but the reframe, that's why I want to bring awareness to, is that when we get caught in the belief that I need that fear to motivate me, we actually are sleeping more poorly, we're more tense, we're more constricted, we're acting from, again, below the line. And I want to, if you are willing to interrogate the belief a little bit more with me, I might open up to the group. How might the opposite be true? I'm about to be erased. Yeah, the only thing I have to fear is fear itself. If I'm about to be erased, how might the opposite be true? I'm about to be fluoresced. I'm about to shine brighter. I'm about to unfold into my full potential. How could just a possibility, it doesn't have to be a huge, but how could that be possible? That this moment actually, instead of erasing you, but actually put you in bold italic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
I suppose for me, it's really, yeah, I really don't have an answer to that. Like, I think it's a journey for me. So what I can do at this very moment is really just pause and think,
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm going to open up to the group. Does anyone else have a thought on how, just a notion on, I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, we're not arguing what's true. Well, none of these beliefs have 100% certainty, right? So I could be erased. I could also end up being in bold italic, or, rainbow highlighter, whatever it may be. How could this be a moment of fluorescence rather than erasure? Coming from above the line. Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
I don't want to speak for the LGBT community, so I'll speak for the Black community, somebody who's a part of that community. But I think there's correlations.
Yeah.
What they're currently doing right now is being called like muzzle velocity or like shock theory. They're doing all of this to purposefully dysregulate us. And what I do as somebody who's a member of the Black community is understand that things have been worse than this. They've been much worse than this. And looking to the past as direction for the future, what did they do? They built community. They came together. They created space for each other. They provided opportunities for one another. All of the different things that we've seen happening previously is something that I look forward to as somebody has provided pathways that I can look back on and work from, so that I'm not starting from ground zero, right? And then building on the work of yesteryears, trying to move forward with that in my mind and in my heart. In terms of your idea of becoming brighter, I won't be the next bell hooks. I won't say that. But, what work can I do that can honor her work, right?
Yeah.
I can't be her, but I can honor the work of those done previously.
Well, what would it look like for you? Like, what would it actually that would let your light shine brighter rather than smaller at this time, just in response to the moment? Just one thing that would make your light bright. One thing you would do that feels authentically your journey, not bell hooks, but inspired by her.
I'm doing my own social change work that's inspired by various people's work. And so that's what I mean by kind of building on what I've seen in the past.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so being able to pivot, being able to find out what strategies were used in the past when things were much more tumultuous, where the attacks were much more present, what was used, what was done, what can I learn? Finding community with others who are willing to do that work too has been extremely helpful. Hearing others say, you know, don't react because they've done this before. When did it ever end? That, you know, those types of things with the reframing of when did it ever end? We've continued to fight. We're
Yeah.
going to continue to fight. So these types of things, making sure I'm around those who are providing these positive but very practical messaging of this has happened before, we will move past this, and providing strategies that were used in the past to kind of, not kind of, excuse me, to elevate the way that we want to move forward. You know, things have changed, the landscape has changed, but the mission never changed, right? So how do we now navigate a different landscape? It looked different before. Now we have a different landscape, different challenges to deal with. They are not impossible to deal with. They are not impossible to handle because all of us today got here because our ancestors somehow made it here, right?
Yeah.
And so the point is there's a path forward.
There's a path forward. So what I'm hearing you really do is move from a front, just thank you. So first of all, I'm hearing you say, instead of I won't be, I will be, I'm saying I won't be erased, right? I will be connected. I'm going to be connected and I will be visible in my community, right? There's a choice to not be erased and there's a choice to be visible. And there's a choice to be visible in a way that's not reactionary to like not being shut down or reactionary, but also being really creative and strategic, and also remembering that, yeah, there's others who've done this before who are inspirations and beacons for us. There are other lights from the past that can help illuminate our light forward. So I really think so. This is a real shift from that victim consciousness to creator consciousness, and from this happening to me to this time is moment having by me, taking ownership of your own creativity. And for those who are wrestling more with the startup piece and the existential pieces at the political level, you know, I think these same things apply. So here's what I'd like to do. Let's get into breakout groups of 3. I'm going to give you all 12 minutes. And I want you to share, you're each going to have 4 minutes to talk about the fear, the thing you're working with, what's alive now, does not be what you came on with. And then I want you to, in that group, talk about what it would look like, what is it like for a minute to experience this as to me. And I think, Kong, you did a really nice example of like, yeah, it's scary, I contract, I'm not sleeping at night, I feel like I'm going to get erased. And then see if you can find in yourself, just take a minute and quiet, feel your feet on the ground and see if I can experience this happening for me. How might this be, what's my potential reframe? Remembering that many before us from the LGBTQ community, Black community, and other communities have also done the same work themselves. Is that clear? We'll write it up in the extractions as well. Danny, would you mind putting folks in breakout groups of 3?
Yeah, we're a little off, so it's actually going to be like 3 or 4, but you should be getting the invitations now.